A foundation, now it's a foundation, where she collects gently used baby clothes and gives them to teen pregnant mothers who have nothing.
Wow.
And she runs us out of her house. Her garage is packed with donations. It's really taken off, and we gave her the voice to say, you're not just that person behind the scenes. You are important, you're doing something important, and we believe in you.
Well, I
got to say, too, you have the good housekeeping seal of approval. This is kind of the good news seal of approval. I mean, in one way, yes, we do help financially, and we kind of help guide them a little bit, but it's so rewarding to see these smaller charities that we've found become bigger charities and become more self-sufficient. And we sit back and go, wow, there's some great contagious power of good news.
Well, we hope that your effort is contagious. We'd like to see this in other major markets like Miami, New York, Chicago, San Francisco. Let me remind you that Ted Turner, when he started CNN back in 1977, wanted to do good news. He says, we're going to have an hour of good news every day. It lasted a week. So thank you very much for doing what you're doing and doing the follow-up that needs to be done.
And you know what? We're having so much fun.
We are. We really,
you should come to our fall.
Well, listen, if you let more men in, I may be there.
Hey, we need a few good men.
Thank you. Wendy Birch, Christine Devine, very, very much. You're watching LA Business Today. Sharon, there you go. Two TV women who leave the studio and do more than just go home.
Yes, Wendy and Christine are certainly making a difference. Stephen Sample, the president of USC, in an address to the LA World Affairs Council, said LA is the de facto capital of the Pacific Rim, with a broad business base that interacts strongly with all the economies around the rim, and that our strength is our cultural diversity and intellectual capital.
Los Angeles County has a population of 10.4 million people. That's larger than most nations, with no other nation having the wealth of cultural diversity that we have right here in the City of Angels.
If any region can lead the fight for a better economy and better business through healthier food choices and greater philanthropy, it is indeed Los Angeles. The women in our show today are part of the cultural diversity and intellectual capital that keeps us on the move.
For sure. Thank you for being with us and LA Business Today.
Thanks.
G'day, Troy McCubbin from North Hollywood. You're watching LA City View, Channel 35, our city, our channel.
gentlemen. Welcome to the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Recovery and Reinvestment for today, Friday, August 14th, 2009, here in John Ferraro Council Chamber, room 340 of City Hall. It's 9 a.m. and myself, Eric Garcetti, as well as our council members, Chairman of our Housing, Community and Economic Development Committee, Herb Wesson, and our Chairman of our Budget and Finance Committee, Bernard Parks, are both here. Ms. Perry is at an AQMD meeting, and Mr. Rosendahl is still out. So we are waiting. I don't know if we're expecting Ms. Hahn or not. With her, we'll have a quorum. Actually, now that we only have 6 members, perhaps we have a quorum. But with that, let's go ahead and start our first item. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Jim Clark, Director of Federal Relations. This is going to be our last meeting for August. When you come back in September, mostly we'll be dealing with energy-related. It seems like the bulk of all of the applications that are due in the energy area are going to start hitting in September, so we'll have a fair number of projects for you when you come back. I wanted to distribute to you, just for information purposes, a letter. Several weeks ago, we talked about TIGER, which is the Transportation Infrastructure Generating Economic Recovery. And this is the $1.5 billion discretionary fund for projects of regional or national significance, and the Southern California Consensus Working Group put together a group of projects, of which we presented 2 of those to you: the South Wilmington Grade Separation Project at $32 million and a West Basin Rail Project at $48 million, which was part of an overall package. This is letter is the letter that was submitted on behalf of the Southern California Working Group, which lists all the projects that were submitted to the Governor's office or to Caltrans, totaling $365 million. As you may remember, the requirements or eligibility is that the projects have to be at least $20 million and no larger than $300 million, and the state cannot receive more than $300 million. So this is over and above that, but we will probably be fighting to try and see if we can get as many of these projects in as possible. And then I have for you a list of the members. What the Governor's office decided to do is to create a screening committee of people throughout the state that would review all of the grant proposals and then make recommendations to the Governor, and then the Governor would submit a package to the feds by September 15th. And this is a list of the individuals. This group will be, and on it is Geraldine Natz, the Executive Director of the Port, Art Leahy with L.A. County. This group will be meeting next week to review all of the projects that have been submitted to Caltrans and make determinations. So hopefully we'll do well in that process. I wanted to also mention that later today a group of us will be meeting with former City Controller Laura Chick, who is now the Governor's Inspector General on ARA, and that's a meeting with the Mayor's office, the CAO's office, the CLA's office, the Controller's office, a couple of departments' offices, and we've extended an invitation to the Council office. This will be at 10:45 that we'll be meeting, so if you'd like to participate. I think it's more, she's interested in finding out how we're dealing with the application processes and the review processes and what we have in place for reporting processes, which Bill may start to mention. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that we've had a meeting yesterday. We're trying to come up with a map that a display map that'll be able to be online on a website that'll show all the locations of all of our projects, where they are. And it'll also be a map that we can overlay various demographic information, unemployment, foreclosures, crime rates, other schools, things like that. And it'll be available both for our use as well as the public's use in being able to ascertain, how we're doing and where we're spending the money.
Is ITA doing that in-house, or are we?
Yes, yeah, we're working with ITA and Bureau of Engineering on that. And that concludes my report.
Okay. All right. Mr. CAO?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Bill Kreitz of the CAO's office. With respect to the project management aspects of the ARA project, you have before you a package with a couple of revised and then a couple of new dashboards from last week's ad hoc committee meeting. and I would be glad to go through. I've made a couple of noted a couple of observations from each of those dashboards that I've noted here on our briefing notes. If you would like to go over those, I would be glad to do so. Otherwise, I'll skip to some of the statistics on the ARA project for the last week and since the last ad hoc meeting. The number of grant applications that we submitted in the last week since the last ad hoc meeting are zero for this week. The number of grant projects for which ARA funding has been requested is now up to 133 projects, and we're requesting $1,700,000,000 in ARA funding for those 133 projects. The number of awards we've received so far as of the 14th is our 69 projects and grant awards for a total of $780 million. And the number of applications due next week for ARA funding is zero. So we're at a little bit of not a standstill, I wouldn't say, but we're ramping down a little bit, probably going to ramp up a little bit later in the summer and the fall.
Will you just include, will you go through for our viewers, I know it's here for us, but for folks, again, I always plug our city website, which is recovery.lacity.org, for our viewers out there and members of the public who want to see how Los Angeles is applying for, receiving and or spending the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act money. Will you just walk us through the grand totals as well of what we've applied for, what we've gotten, the number of new jobs, as well as retained jobs right now?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to do so. On the first dashboard that you have, it's entitled Requested versus Awarded Funds by Category. We show obviously requested and then awarded in some different colored bar graphs here. I'm not sure if people have those, or there's probably no access to those right now. Those will be up on the website, revised from last week. It'll be up on the website after today's meeting. But if you look at some of the information, we've broken this out by categories: energy, environment, bonds and tax credit, public safety, etc. And we're showing we have some detail here, which will also be up on the website, that reflects each of those items, each of the grant amounts that we've requested, as well as the awarded funds by category. And I will show that, again, that will be available on the website today in an updated form. If I could just skip over to the next one, we have another dashboard that shows jobs by department. Right now, we're showing for the Port of Los Angeles, they are leading in terms of jobs created with 6,858 jobs that they estimate being created by ARA funding, if all the funds that are being requested were provided to the city, followed by the Community Development Department with 4,842 jobs being created, and then
So the jobs are linked to the applications, not the awards, right?
That's correct, yes. If we were funded exactly as what we've requested, we would have those number of jobs.
Do we have an ongoing counter of how many jobs we expect to gain from awards that we've received? Like, in other words, the percentage of these?
I don't have it by percentage. What I do have here, there's a little blue bar. It's somewhat small except for the Community Development Department that reflects jobs. You know, I'm sorry. Actually, that is also retained. Yeah. It's also per request. It
would just be interesting. I appreciate that this is what, if we got everything, we'd get. But for, just like we have a ticker on the how much money we've received, I think a lot of members of the public are asking, well, it's nice we applied for 10,000 jobs worth of money. How many do we actually have? And that might be a good stat.
We will have for you next week a dashboard that shows the actual jobs information for the
Let's make it September, since we're on recess.
I'm sorry.
But thank
September.
You can give it to me next week.
Yes, we will have that for you.
Thank you. Okay.
Would you like me to proceed through the other dashboards?
Please.
Yes. The third one is requested city matching funds by department. And we show right now the Department of Water and Power. The majority, I would say, of the matching funds are cash, required cash. There's also an in-kind, that's actually a small percentage right now of the match amounts. The Department of Water and Power, the Port of LA, and the airports, as well as the Bureau of Sanitation, are leading with respect to city matching funds that are required as part of the ARA grants. Those matching funds sometimes are by percentage, 10%, 25, 50%, like that. Sometimes there's not a specified percentage match. If I could proceed to the next dashboard as well, That shows the applications, the competitive application status. We show for competitive applications, we show right now that there's approximately $559 million that we are waiting to hear from the federal government on in terms of what has been requested through ARA. We do, however, show that we've been awarded approximately $157,900,000. We're looking at grant opportunities under consideration for another $91 million, and we're looking at applications denied by the grantor at this point, $130 million, and that's in that pie chart on dashboard number 4. And then the final dashboard shows requested versus awarded funds by grant type. By grant type, I mean competitive versus formula. Right now, the competitive funds, in terms of requested, exceed the formula funds by 5 or 6%, and then the awarded, we actually have the majority of the awarded funds so far are from formula grants. So a lot of competitive grants are still out there, still waiting for the funding source to get back to us.
Okay. Thank you for that overview. Any questions on the overview? If not, let's go ahead and turn to our first, number 1, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, colleagues, and for the public, the Energy Efficiency and Conservation Block Grant is the largest new formula grant that's going to be given out by the federal government, similar to the Community Development Block Grant, but around energy efficiency and conservation. This is the first time that federal government has done this program, and it may be a program that continues into future years, but this is an exciting opportunity for us, and looking forward to the report. And I know a lot of people have been busy at work thinking about how we can spend these green dollars to help Angelenos, so why don't you kick it off?
Thank you, Chairman Garcetti and members of the committee. My name is Romel Pasquale. I'm the Mayor's Director of Environment, and here with me are Beth Gines, who's the Assistant General Manager for the Environmental Affairs Department, Gretchen Hardison, who's the Division Director on Climate for the department, and Craig Tranby, who also works in the department on issues on climate and energy. The last time we were with you, in front of you on this particular issue, we were requesting we're laying out what the energy efficiency block grant dollars were going to be used for. And since then, we've been able to draw down $250,000 for the development of the energy efficiency strategy that would then go to the Department of Energy that lays out what will the resources be used for. I'm going to have the Environmental Affairs Department lay out how the strategy will be developed through a public participation process. But before I do that, I'd like to let you know where we are in this process to date. We've been having conversations on a revolving loan fund with other departments and experts in this arena, including conversations with your office as well as Councilmember Perry's office in development of a commercial and residential revolving loan fund for the access of the private sector into the energy efficiency dollars. There are different models that are out there that we've been exploring, certainly models that look at AB 811 model, which is looking at property tax as a way to pay for energy efficiencies, as well as traditional revolving loan funds for access of energy efficiency. We're hoping to have a proposal in the next several weeks, and we're hoping to certainly have that as part of our energy efficiency strategy. That component certainly is a very complicated component, a component that looks at how do we make sure that we develop the demand for the folks who would want to access these resources, and our ability to leverage up to 20% of the $37 million that we did receive as part of the formula dollars. So that's about a $7.4 million potential revolving loan fund that can certainly be leveraged to much higher dollars. Our work with the county and also work with the Clinton Climate Initiative, as well as Council Districts 13, 9, CRA, Housing, the Environmental Affairs Department, we're all coming together to really figure what this piece will look like. But more importantly, in the next coming weeks, we'll be going through a public process to identify and to help inform what our strategy will look like. And that was through the encouragement of Council Districts 9 and 13 and other council offices for us to go out to the public to make sure that we receive the proper input that we need in the projects that we will begin to select. I'll turn it over to the Environmental Affairs Department, who will walk you through the process of development.
Good morning, Beth Gines with the Environmental Affairs Department. EAD staff have been part of a work group which has been focusing on how to solicit public input into the development of priorities for the city's expenditure of these funds. The work group has included Jeff Catalano from Councilmember Perry's staff, and then also previously we had Sam Siegel from your staff, Councilmember Garcetti. What we have decided to do is to hold a series of public meetings where we can provide description of the funding and then solicit input from members of the community. The challenge for holding the public meetings is that we have 120 days to complete this strategy. And so we need to both have the public meetings and develop the strategy by November 1st. So I will turn it over to Gretchen Hardison and Craig Trinity, my staff, to give you a little more detail on what we're thinking and what the plan is at this point.
Good morning. Gretchen Hardison, Environmental Affairs Department. Thank you. Just as an aside before I forget, we will be coming back to this committee, hopefully at your next meeting, to request specific authority to accept those funds, this initial $250,000 allocation. We're working to set up our accounts with the U.S. Treasury to get that going. In terms of the public outreach meetings, we're working again with Mayor and Council office staff to set up a small series, probably 5 or 6 meetings, to solicit input from members of the public on sort of the categories of funding that are appropriate and what priorities they see as what should be the city's priorities in spending this funding. Due to the time limits, we're hoping to complete all of those public meetings in the month of September. We hope to receive both written and oral input from folks at the meetings. We're developing a little survey questionnaire so that to facilitate folks who don't want to speak at the meetings, we can get their input as well. To get started, we're doing sort of a trial run. Our Environmental Affairs Commission has offered to hold an initial public meeting this coming Thursday, August the 20th at 1 o'clock in the afternoon here in the Public Works Boardroom. It's following another presentation on environmental issues and energy security issues, so we're hoping to maintain some of that audience and attract some additional folks. We'll go through the materials that we have in our brief presentation and see what types of input we get so that we can tailor our questions and make sure we're being efficient in soliciting that input for the coming meetings after that. On page 3 of the document before you, we have the general locations of all of the meetings that we're looking at. All of the locations, with the exception of next week's meeting, are to be determined. So over the next 2 weeks, we'll be working with your staff members to identify specific locations for these meetings, getting our materials and staffing ready for all of those, and working to get notices out. And we'll make sure that as council members do want to attend, we'll try to arrange those so that we can facilitate your attendance at those. Again, we hope to have an opportunity for folks to comment as well on our website. We'll have the same questionnaire located on our website and in the other websites web pages that are interested in hosting that so that we can get as much input as we can over that time period.
Are you setting up a easy-to-remember URL, or is it just going to be on your homepage there? Or?
We will certainly post it on our environmentla.org website.
Great.
And we can link to others if that's...
That's environment.la.org.
EnvironmentLA altogether.
EnvironmentLA.lacity.org? No, environmentla.org.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you. And Craig Tramby will describe what we'll do with the input.
Good morning. Craig Tramby, Environmental Affairs. The input will inform the strategy, the energy efficiency and conservation strategy that we'll be working on. We are forming an interdepartmental working group featuring, at the very least, DWP and GSD, a couple of our key energy-related partners in this. The strategy itself will build upon a number of existing efforts, including the climate plan, DWP Integrated Resources Plan, some past energy plans for the city, the Controller's Audit of GSD, UCLA and state energy roadmaps, and other key city plans that we that we consider to be have a high level that could inform our plan. The funding will be prioritized according to performance metrics set by DOE, so that's jobs, kilowatt hour reductions, greenhouse gas reductions, and so on. Also the principles that were adopted by this committee, and of course the public input. The plan should be complete, as they said, by November 1st. A draft will be submitted to this committee for review, of course, and then upon submittal to USDOE, there'll be about a 90-day turnaround to get the funding for the actual projects. On your handout, you have also the appendix, which shows the guidelines and the 15 or so eligible activities under the grant. So that, of course, will limit the types of projects that can be completed.
And if I can add, we had done an exercise with the departments early on, and we found that there were close to $300 million worth of eligible projects for a $37 million pot of money. So certainly the prioritization process with
of existing projects that
that we have. And the November 1st deadline is a deadline that we set for ourselves. The actual deadline is closer to November 20th, but we'd like to build in a lot of cushion to make sure that we have ourselves some time to adjust should we need to. And one other piece is that there are very few cities. In fact, I don't know of any large city that's going through a public process. Many of the cities have already submitted their strategy, but not through a public participatory process.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for that presentation and for the great work that we've all been a part of on this. I really appreciate leading it the right way and demonstrating what Los Angeles is doing right on the environment as well as on the recovery monies. I think that public process is great as we go through this. I also and you probably heard me talk about the public process and the implementation of this and public participation. And I think that's one thing. It would be very easy, and part of the reason a lot of cities have very quickly put their stuff in is it's easy for government to gobble this money up ourselves. But I think it's critical, and we get much more bang for the buck from popular participation, and that's something that's been a philosophy of this city and certainly of the City Council. Ms. Perry, as our Chair of Energy and Environment, has embodied that in her own work. We've tried to do that in my own district as well. And I know we're going to be talking about the Green Corps in a second, but one of the things that was very good about our digital television transition was hiring people from the community to go out to folks who couldn't make that transition and do some of that work. And I think having a Green Ambassador or Green Corps that is out there with businesses, with residents, we know that a lot of this is just information, and helping somebody in their home do energy audits, look through what they can do to become a green business, reduce their waste stream. Once you teach that to an individual or a business, that really bears fruit for years to come beyond the first projects and the first amount of money. So I think that'll be a very critical part of making sure we don't take that $300 million plus that we already have and identify and just say, okay, the top 10% of this gets money, but really to make sure that we look at this moment in time with a new program to show the nation how this can be really summoning Americans to a new cause around energy and environment. And I think Los Angeles is ahead of the game so far in what we've been doing, but we look forward to that stuff coming forward. Ms. Perry, did you want?
Other than to say that the concept of the working group has been, I think, a great way to build consensus and to exponentially increase, our approach to applying for these funds. As for the South LA opportunity, I know you'll work with Jeff, and I want to maximize our impact on the public by picking a venue that at least straddles several council districts, and there are a few suggestions. One of them would be Epic Center, but you can review that with Jeff and then see what. And I want to make absolutely sure that we do outreach that's not only through the immediate area, the schools, the churches, and go well beyond what the city tends to do, which is just talk to the neighborhood councils, which won't be enough, but let's do it on Facebook, and let's Twitter it, and let's do all those other things so we can attract people who actually communicate that way too.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Weston or Mr. Parks?
How firm is the schedule for the outreaches?
Will you bring the microphone down just so we can hear you?
September real, or is that just projected? because we'd like to start looking at that if you're going to be gearing up for September. We realize we don't have the specific date, but could it slip to October or?
I think ideally September would be the time we would like to hold the meetings, but should the early part of October be a more viable date, I think that certainly is.
And who would be the point of contact as setting up those meetings?
It would be myself in the mayor's office and Beth Gines and Gretchen in the Environmental Affairs Department.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Wilson? Okay, if not, all right, thank you. We look forward to planning those outreach meetings together, and we'll keep the public apprised of that. If we can go to item number 2, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Number 2? There you go. It was my staff's, with taking Mr. Frank. And CDD couldn't sit before you could, so. All right. Now, first things first, everybody, we agendized this as Green Corp with just a P. It is with an S, correct? Or has LACC done CORP? Is it core or core?
There's an S. There should be.
Okay, with an S? Yeah. Corp is usually for corporation, core is usually the core of individuals, I think. But we'll amend the special meeting agenda and make that correction too. And Ms. Perry and I think are introducing a motion today on the Green Core, on the Green Core stuff as well. But tell us what's happening. Who wants to start?
So, good morning. Robert Science, CDD. And as we promised, we were going to come back to you, not only talk about the California Green Corps, but actually the 2 Department of Labor grants. We've been working in collaboration over the last 5 to 6 months, actually, of laying both the foundation for the application, but also trying to build consensus and partnerships between ourselves, the community college, the LA Unified School District, and a number of community players. So today we have our team. The Workforce Investment Board, of course, is our governance board, and Greg has been leading that side of it. Larry, Mr. Frank, with the mayor's office, are providing the overall leadership to the team, and Marvin Martinez with the community college today. We've been strategic about who should be the right applicants, and also have been strategic of who should be the right partners. So we can start with the Green Corps with an S, and Marvin, being the lead with that, could explain what we're doing.
Okay, great. Welcome back. Good to see you.
Oh, good morning. Thank you. Again, Marvin Martinez, Vice Chancellor of Workforce Development. As most of you know, we were one of the successful recipients of the grant. There were 11 grants awarded in the state of California, and it was a very competitive process. So there were well over 50 applications submitted. Just in our region, there were well over 17 applications submitted. 2 were funded in the county, us and the city of Long Beach. In our application, I think one of the reasons that we were funded is that in the grant, we were only required to serve 100 people. So basically what they did is they took $1 million and divided by 100, so it's like $10,000 per student. We told them that we're going to serve 300 students. Why are we serving 300 students? Well, we were able to leverage the dollars, and that's really the purpose of why we're here today, is to tell you that because of us coming together, we can leverage more dollars. As a result, we're going to serve 300 kids. And so what we're going to do is that we're going to target all 9 colleges. We're working with the LA Conservation Corps. They're one of the partners, WorkSource centers. We're going to outreach to a number of students within all those colleges and their service areas. And as you know, all 9 colleges have a number of city council districts that they serve. So each college will have about 30 students that they can recruit from in their areas. The program is designed to provide them with, obviously, wraparound services, training, subsidized employment. So we can basically get them a paid internship. They can go out there and work, learn on the job, and then, of course, they'll be able to then qualify to be able to be employed. The employer will be the LA Conservation Corps. Primarily, we're training people in career paths in energy efficiency, weatherization. And so that's where we're going with this program. The program began already about a couple months ago. And so we're already actively recruiting and trying to get the students on board. It's an 18-month grant, if I'm not mistaken. And obviously we're very excited about getting this going.
And the work is different than normal Conservation Corps work? Is it more focused
exactly.
and specialized? Could you detail a little bit, what is a young Angelino who wants to become a Green Corps member going to wind up doing for Los Angeles and the environment?
Exactly. The whole model is based upon the Conservation Corps and what they've been doing for many years, obviously. So we outreach to not only the LA Conservation Corps, but also the California Conservation Corps, because they already have the model. We didn't want to duplicate what has been going on for 20 plus years. So that's really the model, and so we've launched it already.
Does anybody want to detail what sort of work they do?
The work, basically, they're being trained to go into the areas of weatherization, energy efficiency. So that's really primary, most of the work. Again, most of the people most of the students that we are recruiting are young people. We're talking about 18 to 24-year-olds. But that's the career path that we're putting them under.
So they're going to go to a business or an individual and help them with their home, with weatherization programs, with other ways they can reduce their carbon footprint. What are some of those things? What's some of the meat of the matter?
So it's a subsidized training program for 18 months, but the jobs, which is I think the question here, where does it track to? Yep. Right now there are three groups of private entity jobs that are primarily contracting to the public sector. So number one are the weatherization contractors, Pace, Maravilla, Direct, what's the... Teleco, but others that are certified by the CSD at the state to do weatherization work, and so they've actually had a huge increase in their dollars as a result of recovery dollars. So they're one of the employers. So Pace right now is hiring 60 new individuals, and we actually, from our LA Scholars Program taught at Trade Tech, are a large number of the folks that are going into Pace, for example. The second group of contractors are contractors primarily with Southern California Gas Company, Southern California Edison. There are 5 separate contractors that they work with that do the residential retrofit. The third group of contractors is with DWP. So you have the Small Business Direct Install program, which has just been a CFC program up until now. It peaked. They had 110,000 businesses that they were going through one by one. The employment force peaked at about 366 people. It's down to about 100 right now. The big opportunity, if we can figure it out, which I think is presaged by the motion that I just happened to get a look at, is the residential direct install. And that's the holy grail of all of this work for a lot of us. There's another little piece of it, which is the rebate programs for the $300 for the ultra-low flush toilets and the $500 for the waterless urinals and the one-pint urinals, but there are a few companies that are actually developing business models around just using the rebates. So there are people that can be hired in that arena as well, and a lot of that is going to be focused on in the Pathways Out of Poverty grant as well, as a group of a workforce that we can actually participate in helping develop it. So this, the Green Job Corps grant is going to help us dramatically to develop that workforce along with the LA Scholars Program, along with the Pathways Out of Poverty program.
Okay. Want to walk us through the other two?
So the two other grants that we do have is the Pathways Out of Poverty, which Larry had mentioned, and we'll also have Marvin explain the grant that is due in September or latter part of September, which again is going to focus on low-income individuals doing a new career path and a new type of work. And just to clarify on the Conservation Corps, in terms of using their model of doing the direct community outreach and recruitment and the on-the-job training is what they're currently doing, but it's new type of work. The work doing the energy efficiency and weatherization is traditionally not what they've done in the past, from more the clean and green model that they have done.
So it's greening an existing program, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. So Marvin will speak on the Pathways Out of Poverty.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a grant that's due September 28th. It's one of the grants that became available under the Green Jobs grants through the Department of Labor. We're serving as the lead, but really what's key here is that we see this as a citywide grant. So what does that mean? We're involving many of the major agencies in helping us put together this grant. You could apply for anywhere from $2 to $4 million. The partners in the grant obviously are the city, the workforce centers, LAUSD, the Infrastructure Academy, and others. And what we're doing is we're targeting young people. We're targeting adults. The target population also includes many of the individuals who have been unemployed, hard to serve. We have to target in this grant individuals who come from high poverty areas. So obviously there's a major emphasis in this grant in areas like South LA. So Southwest College will become integral, as well as the Urban League Workforce Center, who will be a close partner with us in this grant. And as Robert was saying, again, what we're doing with this grant is that we're putting students on a career path to go into the weatherization jobs. And so it's an area that we feel that we can complete. We can get individuals on a job right away. We can also put them on a career path so they can go into other types of energy efficiency jobs that hopefully will open up in the near future. So that grant is being worked on right now. The one that we're actually putting more efforts in right now is the one that's due September 4th, which I know Robert and Larry will talk a little bit more about. But that one's right around the corner. But again, we're excited because it's a citywide grant. And the reason that becomes important, council members, because in these grants you got to leverage dollars. You got to be able to show that there's others who are participating in making this work. We'll be targeting at least 1,000 people minimum in order to serve 1,000 individuals to put them on a job. So that's the goal of that grant.
Good morning. So the one that has us all in meeting inflation right now is the September 4th deadline for the energy training grant. Initially, as we were sort of carving up the work, we had asked the Community College District to take the lead on the Pathways Out of Poverty grant, and we were going to do the energy training grant because of the close relationship to the DWP. And then new rules came out, said that workforce centers and cities were not allowed to apply. It could only be nonprofits or labor management committees. So we have done a flurry of meetings with the Joint Training Institute, West Pyle, Frank Miramontes as co-administrators, to have the Joint Training Institute be the lead applicant, which is a 501c6, a labor management training partnership. So all the pieces fit perfectly. CDD will be the fiscal sponsor. The jobs, so the big question is, what are the jobs? So the jobs here are after 4 years of work, we have 1 and almost 2 pre-civil service classifications at DWP negotiated. Right, so the electrical craft trainee, which we've all had people lining up around IBW 18's hall for 2 days waiting for the first 60 hires there. But the electrical craft trainee position has been negotiated, the term and the wage has been negotiated, and that's actually done. The utility pre-craft helper is the second pre-civil service classification, and we are very, very close to that being done. So those are the key job classifications that we're going to track people to. The third area is that we have the retrofit of city buildings, which will primarily be, we hope, these GSD civil service, pre-civil service classifications. We're working on that piece of work right now. And then the third jobs that we want to connect the energy training grant to are in Proposition J at the Community College District. There is $600 million set aside for their energy program. So these will be primarily contracted jobs to do solar installation and other energy training programs. That's all rooftop solar and parking lot solar installation. That's dependent upon the negotiations that are ongoing with DWP about the relationship between the buyback program and Community College District and DWP, which are moving forward. So those are the primary jobs that we're tracking towards on the energy training grant. The training resources, certainly East LA Skills Center is one of the key ones that we'd like to, that connects us up to LAUSD adult programs, as well as to the East LA Skills Center. We're looking closely at the Urban League and the old Toyota better facility. It's not necessarily up to the size that we want. In the meantime, we might be working directly. Southwest College and Trade Tech that have great programs, training programs, are in conversations about that site, but we're also looking to potentially do it on the campuses in the meantime while that conversation moves forward. And then we're looking at a site in the Valley as well. So the two best sites, one of them is Valley College in terms of where training can happen in the Valley. It's already happening in Community College. And then West Valley Occupational Center has a great solar program in the Valley as well. So those are the piece of the puzzle. There's going to then be the referral piece of the grant application, and those will be workforce centers, and we will develop probably expertise in 1 or 2 or 3 workforce centers, but all workforce centers will refer people through those 1, 2, or 3 workforce centers into the pathway, which really is one of the best things we as a city have, which is the DWP jobs. But it's taken literally 4 years to negotiate these pre-civil service classifications, which allows you to do local hire on a civil service job.
Okay. Any questions from the committee on this grant? You're doing good.
We would request letters of support from your offices for the grant, and our staff could follow back up with your offices. It's really important, I think, for the city to be successful. It's always a chore to write the grants and to put together the partnerships, but the end result is to get the dollars back within the city, and as much support that we could get from each and every one of you, it would be greatly appreciated.
If you want, the fastest way to do that is draft a template that we can revise and email it to each one of us, and we can revise it.
Although it's kind of strange to have we're the city applying for it, so we are the city. If you want us to do something from the council and mayor together, obviously the application, we are in support of it because we're applying for it. So it's we're not some outside party saying, hey, I support the city's grant.
We know that all of you have your own relationships that carry your own weight there in D.C., and so
happy to put our names down. Like, we can pass it around the whole entire council, and one big resolution or something. Sure.
That'd be fantastic.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, great. Thanks very much, guys. Any public comment? Okay. This will adjourn the special meeting of the Ad Hoc Committee on Economic Recovery and Reinvestment. And we will start council in about 10 minutes. Thanks, everybody.